Hey everybody, how's it going? How are we doing today? So, as per usual, 10 minutes after I said I'd start, I'm starting. What's going on? Let's see here. How's everybody doing? It's good to see everyone in here. I had to get together some information, just a little bit, to talk about today's stream, and we can talk about whatever, but I thought it would be fun to talk about the hobby right at the turn of the century. We'll touch on what was kept before the turn of the century a little bit, but we'll talk more about what was there in the hobby in like 1910 to 1900, that 10-year window. We have a lot more documentation on that. And so we're able, with film and books and all sorts of stuff, to document that era a lot better than 1880s, 1890s. There were actually quite a few different people who were into fish and who kept fish around the United States, especially in the large cities on the East Coast. But there were a lot of very secretive groups. So, for instance, the first real fish club in the U.S. was called Salamander, would be the rough translation, but Triton is the actual name of the group, and it was 5 German immigrants that just decided we're gonna start nerding out about fish on our own, and the meetings were all held in German. They were spoken in German, and tough luck if you didn't speak it. It was just kind of for those guys that were involved in setting up those first meetings. How are you guys? Can you guys hear me okay, or is that water way too loud? I feel like the fish room's loud today because I put a new filter on that's interesting to say the least. It's that new AquaTop that I showed you guys unboxing a while back. But so I also asked in the community tab, let me pull this up on the phone too so I can see your comments in real time. But I also asked if you guys wanted me to cover, thanks to an amazing subscriber named Lorna, or Lorena, I don't know how she says it, but she lives in Italy, and she sent me a French. Basically, she had 2 different home encyclopedias, and one was like a woman's home journal, if you guys remember those old things that were kind of like how to do anything around the house, like fixing things and little repairs, and how to sew and how to bake and how to iron and how to, like, kind of like a home ec class in an encyclopedia. And those were really popular back 1950s and earlier, 1960s and earlier. And she had one from 1927 that was French, and then she had one from 1908 that is Italian. And she was able to translate the Italian for me. I was able to, I can speak some French, so I was able to get through it between Google translating the words I didn't know. And she was nice enough to scan them for me. So thank you so much, Lorna. Really appreciate it. Seriously, it was awesome. We're not going to go over that today. We're going to do that on its own because I had you guys vote, and everybody voted that those should be their own episodes. So we'll make them their own episodes. Now, a lot of where I get my information for this, hold on, let me mute this. Okay, now I've got you guys in live chat too, so I can see what you're seeing. I can see you see me as we see. All right, so what was I going to say though about? I'm reading comments, guys. You're going to throw me off. So I want to say hi to a couple folks before we jump into the meat and potatoes. Oh, right. But a lot of what we're going to talk about I got my leads from this book. This is an incredible book. I paid $150 for it about 3 years ago, and I got it on eBay. I would pay $500 for this book if I had had to, knowing what's in it now. And the author is still around. He's still alive and well. He finally approved my Facebook friendship, actually just a few weeks ago. But it's Albert J. Klee, Klee. And he is an incredible wealth of knowledge. Once you basically get the name of, one of these people or something, then you can really start to dig through. Like, he has chronicled stuff like who's the first person to import paradise fish into Philadelphia. Like, any newsletters and club articles that had been archived that he could go find, he did. And he put them together. And I mean, this covers some European stuff, but it goes into even like patents on the first electrical pumps, the first heaters. It's got some really interesting pictures. And a lot of these are pictures you'll see over and over and over again in the hobby. They're just extremely common photos because there aren't that many photos of certain things in the hobby. For instance, let me try to find one that you guys have probably seen. There's a good chance you guys have seen this one. And what happened is I noticed even in German sources, in Japanese sources, in the UK, in the US, people had these woodcuts, and they must have sent the prints of like this one and a number of others that you'll probably recognize. Like I was saying, they had a number of these, and I think they must have sent them around the world as some sort of a like a publishing kit kind of thing, so that you could basically ink these. They must have been mass produced as like lithographs or something, because they're in this publications all around the world. Like this one is another one that you'll see over and over and over again, is this aquarium here. So it's pretty cool to see all that. But there's certain things, and also this you've probably seen if you're into aquarium history. That's the first ever newsletter before there was even an aquarium club, from 1877 in New York about aquariums. So in any case, I just wanted to give credit where credit is due, that a lot of what I found is not available on the internet. The internet is a terrible source for the historic stuff in the hobby, honestly. It really is. So a lot of these sources that I have are books, and there's a group also on Facebook where it's all antique or historic fish and aquarium literature, books and newsletters and magazines and fanzines, you name it. So kind of cool. Let's say hi to everybody as we get started. I appreciate everybody being here. Seriously, I do. Euro Gupper, Chris Robertson, Alexander Supertramp, what's up? Jeff Kane, Jimmy P, Jamie Anderson, Lady Rorschach. Of course, we've got Dr. Anthony with the Amazon Research Center for Ornamental Fish. Freshwater Ichthyology, what's going on, Rebecca? Mark Sturlson, Scotty the Fish Freak, Curtis St. Martin, Laura Sutton. Who else do we have active in the chat here? Chris George, David Rayner, Alyssa Bentley, Hector De Mucha, Giuseppe 9214, Michael Morgan, Brian Levy, Paul Soltero, Mark Sturlson, Checkzone, hello. Monster Fish Gal, Shelby Ray, what's up? Good to see you. I'm happy that you're lurking and listening while working on Escape with super glue. Yeah, don't touch your phone. Mr. Dafafafa, hello and welcome. Tony G, Dave O, we're almost done, guys. Ticket to Space, always good to see you. Sketty Nona, Sandy Shalman, Devin Chow Alamang, Fish Tropic Canada, and Silver Creek Aquarist. What's good? Mike's Tank Syndrome. Also welcome. Upper Aquatics, Garden of Eater, Luigi is Better, and Jamie L. Chi Goes, Shelby K. Hello, and Ivor Millie. Hello. And Craig. Hello. All right. We have gotten to the list of who was here at the beginning. So welcome, guys. If you have a question for me, please do the @ symbol and then Secret History Living in Your Aquarium. I know it's a lot to write out. You got it just to talk to me. Okay. That's the penalty for talking to me, is you have to do that. So let's get into this thing. Let me open up the pictures. I got pictures for you guys. Did a few hours of work before this podcast, streamcast, whatever. Dreamcast. Let's just call it a Sega Dreamcast. I did a few hours of work before this Sega Dreamcast. And we'll just share my email at first and go from there. But I'm curious if you guys know some of the first fish that were in the hobby. So I'm going to say that wherever you were at, wait, the Secret History. Oh, you have a Zebra auto for sale. Cool. Yeah, they're $15 to $25 wherever I've seen them. More in that $17.99 to $21.99 kind of range. Whenever I see them in Seattle, so pretty similar price. I know they're coming from the wet spot, tropical, for all of our sources that have them, and yeah, so there's that. Sandy Diamond, is it Diamond or Diamond? But in any case, welcome and thank you so much for becoming a member. Really, guys, it means a ton to me when folks do that. It's $1.99. It's just you get access on the community tab to an extra 4 episodes a week, which you can also see on the Aquatic Morning Show. But you know why it's really helpful is for things like buying a $150 book that's out of print, or buying old newsletters from clubs that I'm trying to buy. That right now there's a package that's $200 online that I really want, but I'm probably not going to go for it. You know, stuff like that. That's what kind of costs me some money on this channel sometimes, but I really do appreciate it. It's very kind of you guys, and it really does help beyond even just like the maintenance and stuff. Is there info about tech and how they did maintenance back then? Oh, 100%. And we'll talk about that. So basically, the first thing that you should think about in the hobby around 1890s to 1910 is kind of when the first heating came in on a scale other than DIY. So people were heating their aquariums with kerosene and candles, with literally whale fat. They had a like a Bunsen burner, and they would heat up like a copper plate or pot, and then that had a water tube, a water pipe that would go and heat up the aquarium itself. Hey, we got another member, 2 members in one stream. Right on. Welcome, buddy. And it's a good friend of mine, Garden of Eater, Grant Eater. Welcome. You and your wife. Welcome. They're great folks. And his channel, if you guys want to learn about shrimp, that guy has bred just about everything in the hobby, it seems like. So, like I was saying, though, the heating was really the limiting part. They knew quite a bit of stuff about fish in general back then that might surprise you. They knew to cycle the tank. They knew that they needed O2 in the water, that they needed oxygen. And one of the earliest arguments or debates in our hobby was, are snails required? So what we'd call today the Wallstad tank, where you put down sand and some gravel and then soil, and then you might want to cap it, and then you put plants in. You let it sit for a month to 3 months, and then you do that, let it cycle. You add all sorts of little things. I mean, the term and the idea of infusoria, single cell little creatures, the idea of, for instance, keeping a jar of Wrigley's from the pond, everything from in here. I've got Daphnia, Cyclops, bloodworms, and mosquitoes, and all sorts of stuff in here. Well, they believe that you should throw all that stuff into the tank pretty much. And the first aquariums, if we're being, if we're talking about everyone other than the extremely wealthy, which you probably have seen some of those cast iron, beautiful, like ornate Victorian tanks. That wasn't your normal tank necessarily. That is who really pushed the aquarium hobby ahead, especially early on. Those were the people who could pay for the expeditions, who could pay to get a ship to go all the way, you know, from London to the Cape of Africa, or all the way over to India, and specifically bring back fish, like just for them. Other than that, a lot of it was kind of stowaway stuff. So people, for instance, the first manifest in the United States that Albert Klee could track down was that in 1878, goldfish were imported. However, if you read American literature, by 1840, they're talking about how the Erie Canal is full of pet goldfish. So it's kind of interesting how that works. And Mr. Dafafa, you said you wish you could listen to my streams in podcast form. So podcast form is something that's coming. The Stumbling Block has been just getting the sponsor to cover the hosting fees and all that stuff. But it's already imported, and there's a playlist called Audio Only Podcast. So you can go there, and it's going to have all the episodes that are predominantly audio, that don't have a ton of pictures. This one, we're going to have some pictures, though, because I just thought it was too cool not to show you guys what the fish are, and some interesting stuff here. Okay, pronounced like the gemstone, right on. And then also, what's the best fish magazine? I would say Amazonas, probably. Tropical Fish Hobbyist is okay. It's a lot of ads. And honestly, I think if you have a local fish club, you probably have, you know, something close to as legitimate of a publication as it can be at times. But they do have interesting articles and features from time to time. But Amazonas, I would say, is the only American magazine that's really consistently making good stuff. It's got a lot of ads too. I mean, it's a magazine. That's how magazines do. Hey, Skipper, how's it going, buddy? So yeah, our aquatic universe. Hello, welcome, and yeah, good to see lots of folks in here. The 186 Element, Paul McCarthy, good to see you. Wayne Talbot, good to see you. KJE Aquatics, what's up? The Nano Aquarium guy, my fish tanks, hello. All right, so let's look at things. Things are good, right? We like things. So as I was saying, the thing that limited the hobby early on was really just the fact that you couldn't heat the water. They knew by very early on what was possible as far as, let me put this like this for now. Okay, I've got the images ready though. So they knew what was possible. They thought there was a big argument in the hobby whether snails were fundamental. A lot of people believe that snails ate whatever the bad stuff was that would go bad in your water. But most people avoided that by doing constant water changes, like daily water changes. And so the vast majority of fish keeping up until the 1870s, 1880s was not far away species other than the koi and goldfish. And you start to see the betta and the paradise fish in that time period. But after that is when you start to see things like electricity that can power what we need in the fish room. And electrical air pumps and electrical heaters were the two main like giant changes that by the 19 teens, really World War I is really what caused the whole world to kind of open up to talk to each other on a global scale and to have telephone wires. And you know, there was telegraph before that, but now it was an affordable thing. People could talk to each other. And so we don't see a lot of the stuff that you guys might think about as our typical fish in the hobby until then. But the other thing I want to mention that isn't well documented is how so many of our fish in the hobby are actually, they were kept for 50 to 100 years by colonial folks. So say the British stationed in India. There may be some guy who was a colonel, you know, that's in the military who is stationed there, and he would keep fish. Well, that kind of thing happened a lot. And actually, there was a guy in the United States, and I'll pull this up as one of the first things I want to look at because I want to do a whole episode on this, but we'll get there eventually. Let's see here. Split screen with this. What's going on? Why can't I get this to pop up? All right, well, we'll just look at it full screen. You guys only need to look at me for a sec. So the first little excerpt, where did it go? Right here. So there was a dude, and he was in the military, and he brought back a bunch of goldfish, and then they bred them right there in Washington, D.C., also in Maryland. But from 1884 to 1894, if you were a resident of Baltimore or Washington, D.C., and you wrote your congressman, the U.S. Commission of Fish and Fisheries, the National Marine Fisheries Service today, they would send you a free goldfish. And for $2, they would send you a bowl and some food. And some 20,000 were given out each year before the program was discontinued. Why did they do this? I don't really know, honestly, but it's interesting. And we've got these other sources, and I wanted you guys to see this stuff because this was, these are some advertisements from right before the turn of the century in an aquarium newsletter that was in New York in the 1890s. And this is, I think, 1898, I want to say. But this is advertising like Philadelphia and Pittsburgh and Baltimore all had big aquarium hobbies going on. And even San Francisco had a hobby going on. And right here you can see Nippon, that's what Japan was called. And still is, but they were importing that, which is, I think, is interesting. They were importing goldfish and koi predominantly from Japan, but you can also see that they're selling things like combination of natural fish food, sample box, 10 cents, Japanese shrimp, 15 cents, baby fish food, 15 cents, imported dried daphnia, a jar of it, 35 cents. So I think that's kind of interesting. And then if we look up here, you know, they've got different spots in New York, but Philadelphia and New York are really the two places in the U.S. So I'm going to kind of ignore Berlin and Paris and Munich at the moment because they were ahead of the U.S. in a lot of ways, but not in all ways. So Now, young veil tails, they're probably talking about goldfish there. And you're really seeing mainly that. But there is some talk of danios. And what that is the zebra danio. Remember, a lot of Latin names have changed since this period. And here's actually Chicago, though, or Cary Station, Illinois. And they had, look at that, 1.5 million goldfish there. Shipped anywhere in the United States or Canada. Write us for an illustrated catalog. So I just think stuff like this is fascinating on the detail you can find in just little pictures like this and little articles like this. This is what I love to dig through. If you guys have anything like this, please let me know. I'd love to see more of this sort of thing. So another one that I thought was cool was this one from 1895. And this is, this one actually goes into the plants. And this is the Hugo Molleret. And he is really the guy who kind of kicked off fish keeping in America in a huge way. I mean, there's Innes, there's a whole lot of people who had big influences, Locke, Innes, but that is the guy who he invented the shipping can so they could ship live angelfish across the country in 1917. I mean, he did a whole lot of stuff in his lifetime. So this is the 1890s, and I want you to check out the plants that they're already cultivating and that they're doing human, domesticated varieties of. Obviously, we knew how to do stuff with plants, be it growing rice or growing, artichokes or whatever. Humans have been messing with plants forever. So, Sagittaria, and they even have a strain name, which is New Era. Now, what this really is Sagittaria natans. And they call it a free bloomer in the parlor aquarium. Plants well rooted each, 25 cents. Sagittaria, it's hard to read this, but France, maybe. France M. A hybrid of great beauty. Same habitat proceeding, but larger in some blades, attaining a length of 18 inches and a width of over 1 inch. Prolific bloomer, pot-grown plants, $2 each. They've got Sagittaria Windermere, seedling of a former smaller habitat, but equally as graceful, $2. Sagittaria Sinensis, which means Chinese back then. So it's the Chinese arrowhead plant. A charming novelty, easy to culture. It may be grown in similar to Chinese lilies in water, moss, or soil in a vase, bowl, tub, or pot. In or outdoor, 25 cents each. Ludwigia Mollaretal. And I don't know what this became. I almost guarantee that this is a different plant now. 25 cents would be a fair amount of money at the time. Remember, those goldfish were 2 cents. So 25 cents is a fair amount of money. And I believe it was around somewhere between 50 cents to $2 for about a 10-gallon aquarium. And glass and slate and mirror, or a mirror for the bottom, that's not cheap back then either. I mean, that was cost some money. So here they have Myriaphylum, basically parrot feather, which now is invasive. Gee, I wonder why. Then they have Cabamba caroliniensis, which we still have, 25 cents each. Man, the price hasn't changed much for a start. Cabamba I don't know what that is as far as that smear, but rosifolia maybe, a pink variety. And I wonder if that is Cabamba furcata now. Then they had Salvinia amazonica, which is what you'd think of as Salvinia. Riccia fluitans, you thought that was a new thing for aquascapes? Nope, 25 cents back then. Chara vulgaris, microscopial work. For microscopial work. Huh, I don't know what that is. And then they've got water hyacinth, the water poppy, Limnocaris Humboldt. Oh, that's my warning saying lightning's nearby. But in any case, that I thought that was interesting that those were the plants. What you're seeing, though, just as before, is you start to see right at this turn of the century time, you see these fish that we're going to talk about here. The Chinese paradise fish, which is the paradise fish or gourami, the kissing fish sometimes, or kissing gourami. The German Goldfor, the German Gold Tench. Now, tenches were a very, very common fish in the hobby, and we'll look at those in a minute. They're European and American fish. They don't need a heater. They also sold a lot of newts, frogs, and tadpoles. Remember, the name of that first club was actually Triton, and it translated to salamander, a type of salamander. Okay, so Geek Boy says that 25 cents is about $7.80 in today's money. $2 in 1889 is about $62. Yeah, and you know those when you try to figure out like what money's worth now versus then, it doesn't always translate that great. I mean, there's sometimes some issues just because like certain things like food have gone down dramatically in how much we have to spend on them, whereas clothing, yeah, that's gotten dramatically cheaper. I mean, you used to buy a pair of shoes and have it resold, you know, that you put new soles on it and keep the shoe for, you know, decades or however long you could. So it's a good approximation though. Hey, Nirvana Aquatics, good to see you. I always love your Instagram. So next, building sticklebacks. These are probably the 2 or 3 spine sticklebacks. They also had the 4 spine sticklebacks in the hobby back then. And what these were they were very common. Also, by the way, another thing that limited the hobby was this right here, which is waterproof cement. And that's how you sealed your tanks and how you built tanks. And it looks like 1.5 pound tin box is 50 cents for it. But you'd mix it, and it was like this heavy duty caulking paste type stuff. And that is how you kept your aquarium sealed before silicone. And it actually wore out very frequently, and it needed to be redone frequently. I like that they have walnut handles on the dip nets. That's pretty sweet. And then they have actual tanks right here, a wooden base and a cornice for bracing. So $7.50. And then they've got, does it have the size here? Well, so you'd order another magazine and they'd have all the info. But here, you know, you can see they either have plate glass bottom or a slate bottom, or a mirror as the bottom, which is silver / mercury covered glass. So I thought that was, you know, just this one ad, again, easy to flip through and ignore it, but kind of cool. Now, it says that there's a zebrafish from Brazil. And what that is is the zebra acara, possibly, but the first cichlid in the hobby is actually something different. And let me pull that up in another window and then flip over to it. So hold on one sec, guys. Okay, so where is it? Right here. So this is a fish that we don't necessarily see in our hobby all that much anymore, but it's the Cyclosoma. And this one is the Cyclosoma, I don't know how you say that, facetum, probably, facetum. And it's known today as the Chameleon Cichlid, but this is also usually the Brazilian zebrafish. If you see that term in old literature, it looks like an acara, and it is very similar to an acara or a convict cichlid. But this was around in the late 1870s onward. It was a very early fish. And you can see, although this was our first aquarium cichlid, it is rarely seen in the hobby today. The zebra convict or Congo cichlid is another, Congo being the crib. So I want to show you what these fish look like, though, because they're actually kind of nice looking. So let me pull that up. Cyclosoma facetum. There's actually 3 of them that were imported early on. And let's switch over the live view so you guys can see my other screen. I wish I could share both these screens. All right. Share screen. Hey guys, it's me again. Hello. I'm late. Did you miss your favorite Tetra? No, but actually maybe. There's one Tetra we're going to talk about in particular, but we'll get there. You didn't miss it. All right, here we go. So this is that fish. I don't know why we don't keep this more, especially since we've had it in the hobby for freaking ever. I mean, why wouldn't we still have this fish? I'm sure we've bred some, incredible variants of it, like this one here. It's a very, very pretty fish. So, and the variety you can see in old illustrations too. A lot of, when you search for this, a lot of the imagery is old stuff. But they're pretty cool, and they've got that kind of big old hump of a head. And then the phase after keeping this fish is when and actually what the fish was known as is the chanchitos or conchitos. I'm assuming it's chanchitos. And there's different ones, different species, but these were, if you look, like this is an image I've seen over and over again in old literature, where again somebody was probably sharing the same woodcut or print or whatnot. And so you see that same thing coming up over and over again. Also, these old illustrations, this is supposed to be a paradise fish. This is supposed to be a betta. Then you've got your bulgy-eyed goldfish, your veil tails. Here you've got, actually, this is probably supposed to be a gourami. See the little things? That's supposed to be your paradise fish. This is probably one of the 4 gouramis they brought in first. That's an American sunfish, which was a very common fish to have. And then up here is the variation that we see in the hobby being kept. So I just find that really interesting. I think I'll probably do an entire video on just this first cichlid because I think it's really interesting. Ebor Millie says, looking at self-sustaining food web, and I'm considering calanoid copepods and Monia daphnia. Any other recommendations for first layer heterotrophs? Yeah, I mean, I think seed shrimp are great. I don't mind scuds. Some people hate them, but I think they're great. And I also like black worms and blood worms, which are just flies, so they're kind of seasonal. So yeah. Let's see here. Did they keep shrimp in the 1800s? So they did, but they kept them as a food source usually. So there's that. Oh, that's interesting. Hector de Mucha, is it Mucha or Muca? Says that chonchitos is translation Spanish for fatty. Wouldn't surprise me if that's what they called this fish, fatty. I mean, maybe. Mick says, I think facetum might be the one which today we call the Australoheros species red sable. I had it 2 years ago. Very nasty. Probably why it's not popular. Could be. I mean, there are, like I said, there are a number of varieties of it that I wrote down here that were kept that I see in those old ads. And, you know, the other thing that we see, and while we've got Google up, we'll do it out of order, but we'll want to look at color pictures of these first fish in the hobby. So the other ones that were brought into the U.S. in 1902 officially, and that's saying officially because just like the goldfish, it's probably a good 100 years off from when the first goldfish arrived. Now, these other fish are probably going to be more like 10 years off, but people brought in small numbers, and only like when you see a group of 300 or 400 of these fish did it get on a manifest of a ship. And a lot of times private people did whatever the hell they wanted. So if they had their own sailing ship or they owned a shipping company or whatever, and you know they had money for whatever reason, there's a good chance that they could have brought stuff in, you know, especially San Francisco, New York, different port cities. They bring whatever could survive in, you know. And so the first tetra to enter the hobby is the Hyphosobricon, and it's the Heteroradbus. Let's see here. Hyphosobricon. I'm just doing this for the spelling. And then and this name might be out of date. We'll see. Oh, still pulls up though. Ah, there you go. So it's the flag tetra. And this was the first tetra in our hobby brought to America and Europe. And, you know, I could easily see like a black neon tetra also getting confused. But interesting fish. There's sometimes no rhyme or reason to why certain fish were first in the hobby. I mean, like they're the ones who survived the trip basically. But what's interesting to me is that, you know, they have these going on. Then they had Severums was the next cichlid. And then quickly they bring in it was 1908, so it was actually after the turn of the century, is the first recorded Geophagus brasiliensis. And these are the earth eaters. And I love these. They're awesome. They're beautiful. If I had a bigger tank, I would totally have them in it. But again, I mean, they're just really cool. And there's a lot of man-made varieties now, people-made, if I'm not being sexist with my nomenclature. But there's a lot of different groups of collection points and body shapes and stuff too. So it's hard to know other than the illustrations of the time, and a lot of them were woodcuts. The one that cracks me up, I bet we can find it here. So it's the 1711 Webster's Goldfish woodcut, Webster's Dictionary. I want to show you guys what the first. All right, we'll try. I have a print of it somewhere, but it's the, well, we'll get rid of the date. But first gold, and we'll do, oh, separate. Goldfish woodcut. It might not be a woodcut then. Maybe it's a rubbing or some other thing. Goldfish description. We'll go with that. Come on. I won't go down this rabbit hole too much longer, but I want you guys to see how off they are in like what they thought a goldfish looked like. Even though they had them right in front of them. First goldfish, taxonomy, maybe? I spelled that wrong. Taxonomy. So you get some real beautiful woodcuts and illustrations that look great, like these ones, you know, that are old too, and they describe the fish great. But the first one is just laughable. And it's like you wouldn't be able. Oh, and by the way, just as we're scrolling by while we're talking about history, that right there, that is a photo from Harvard. And that is 1939 when some jerk decided to swallow a goldfish with his alcohol and then puke it back up and put it in the bowl. And that became a thing. And that's the frat guy you can thank for that. Our very finest at Harvard. Alrighty. I'm doing one more search and then giving up. First goldfish. Goldfish dictionary image. I spelled dictionary totally wrong. Why did I do that? It's Webster's too, is where it shows up. Or wait, no, it's not Webster's. Never mind. It's some other earlier. Well, actually, I know where I can find it. I don't even have to do all this. We're gonna skip out of that. Back to me. Hi guys. I'll pay attention to the chat again real quick. So I can pull it up. It's in this book somewhere. Let me flip through real quick and find it. But you find the thing I want you guys to think about too is what information can we glean off of these old images? Because whoever illustrated them or carved them into wood or metal or however they made them, it's a lot of work, especially like, for instance, this image that's from some old book. Wait, let's get it. I've got a light set up here. Come on. I mean, that the cross hatching and detail in that to make it look good for black and white, and showing that she puts her hand in the water so that it doesn't splash and mix up the substrate and cause a mess. I mean, that's really cool. There's a lot of detail, and it shows the kind of pot and how you're trying to cause it to splash as much as you can, but to not get all muddy, because they thought that would choke the fish. But they also knew that the aeration was important. And in fact, aeration was the thing above all else that they championed early on, was aeration. They're always harping on aeration and the movement of water. And I mean, some of the woodcuts get extremely detailed. And they've got, you know, very ornate systems that they show being set up. And this is all real rich people before the turn of the century showing off this kind of stuff. And that right there has a heater and an air pump and different stages. So it's kind of interesting. Black neon tetras, yeah, they live 3 to 10 years, depending on how good of a fish keeper you are. Well, I mean, they might live 30 seconds, depending on how good of a fish keeper you are. But they tend to live like 3 to 5 years. Most tetras. Some will live up to 10. But check out these goldfish images from 1857. What the hell were they thinking? Why did they hire this artist? If anybody ever had seen a goldfish, they would have been like, what is that? Looks more like a stickleback. So I just find that funny. And again, this book that's an assembly of all these old images. And the cool thing about these old images also is they aren't owned in by anybody because they're too old. They're over 100 years old. Their copyright, well, over 75 would have been the cutoff, but their copyright says, too bad. Anybody can use these images and things now. And so that's why it was cool and easy to put them into a book like this. So anyways, I don't know. I feel like I'm losing my mind over trying to find the goldfish picture that I wanted to find, just to show you guys why we can't always believe what we're seeing in these early accounts. But what's really interesting is that in 1900, you have a photographer by the name of Schudfelt, and this is a real photograph of a fish underwater. This is a sunfish or a pumpkin seed fish. And that was one of the most kept fish in America. Was the pumpkin seed or the sunfish and the different species. And now they're cutting up the species into 15 different subspecies. I mean, if you count all the different panfish, sunfish, warm water, if you go from like warmouths to pumpkin seeds, like if you look at that whole grouping, they've split it up a lot more than it was back in these days. The other thing is that is their image. Remember, their black and white image of the Cyclosoma that was so common in our hobby early on. That's their woodcut image. So yeah, advertising has never been honest. That is a constant. Yeah, it's funny. You should check out the first painting of a kangaroo. I will have to do that. That sounds really interesting. I bet the first platypus people were like, what? No, I don't. Do it again. Let's see here. Chrome tab. All right, back to my... Okay, so after you have the fish that are common in America, you start to see barbs. That's one of the first fish outside of European and American fish. So you see things like pike and gar and gobies and gudgeons. And this was in Europe. This was a really popular goby. But then you start to see all of the different catfish when they're young, a lot of bullheads, a lot of mad toms, things like that being kept in America. And in big tanks, gars and other stuff that weren't full grown, but when they were young, and it wasn't necessarily seen like you'd keep fish. Here's a tench, I believe. It wasn't believed that you'd keep fish for their whole lives. You'd keep them and kind of examine them for a while. Really, goldfish are the first fish that they started saying, let's breed these fish in captivity, keep them their entire lives. And like I said, by 1841, there were already reports in literature and newspapers that the Erie Canal was overrun with goldfish and that they were mucking up the habitat. And all the way out into Ohio and other places like that, there were reports of goldfish. And I want to take you to the far end of what we're going to talk about today, which would be kind of like 1910 era. But here is another pretty comprehensive list of the prices. And it's for a pair versus a dozen. And I like that they're selling alligators, small, $2 a pair, so $1 per alligator, or $18 for a dozen alligators anywhere in the U.S. And this is out of Daytona Beach, Florida. And they've got water hyacinths, they've got water fern, which is bulbitis, they've got parrot feather, and all sorts of. They've basically got a lot of milfoil and kabamba and floating plants, a lot of lilies, things like that are big in the hobby. But the real true tropical fish, the paradise fish, which goes out of the tropic range as well, but it is found in the tropics. And here you've got, swordtails, platies, blue platies, and the names have changed on a lot of these, but least killifish are one of the really popular ones. This is this might be the guppy. Let me double check that one. Because it's had so many names that it gets really confusing. But with the reticulatus, I'm suspicious because I don't know that fish off the top of my head by any other name, or by this name, the Libster's reticulatus. Yes, okay, so that is a guppy. So what you'd be looking at there is a wild Endler-looking guppy. The way we think of Endlers now is what a lot of the guppies look like natively. Then you've got the Gambusia, which is basically a guppy without color. Golden platies, blue platies, green, the Hellerized. So, I mean, you're also going to see Latipina being, that's actually just a molly, I believe. Let me double check on that. The Molliensia. Oh, wait. Mollienisia. Latipina. Maybe it still is the legitimate. Oh, I guess that is still the legitimate name. My bad. Oh, I guess it goes now by Posilia Latipina. But okay. I mean, I wasn't sure about that genus name. But yeah, I mean, those are found from North Carolina and all the way over into Texas. But then you've also got like your top minnows, your Elosoma sunfish, the little tiny sunfish. I don't know what the Luciana omata is. I think if I do a little bit of digging here, Luciana, I think that's going to be the bluefin killifish. But let's see here, Luciana omata, if I can even find it. So that one is today's. Oh boy. I mean, maybe they've changed the spelling, but it's still it looks like a golden top minnow to me, but it's something that has definitely changed. Oh wait, here we go. I found an article that talks about, so it's first called that, and then it went to Heteranda omata, then to Rivulus omata, and then to Lucania, Lucania, and then Leptoleucania is what they stuck with at the end, it looks like. But again, here, let me share this with you guys real quick. I think I can, it might just be easier if you guys can see this off my phone. Those are those fish right there that are in that listing. They're top minnows and killifish out of the Gulf Coast region. So I just found that really interesting. Found it pretty cool that stuff that we're kind of looking at now is stuff that we early on had in the hobby as such a popular thing. So if we go back to the over here, the plants again, we looked at those, but they also have azolla or azolla, and then basically you send them cash. That's an unfortunate spacing. Anybody is my watchword. I know there's another T. Leave me alone. All right. So then you get into all these barbs, and you saw in that ad that they had one barb, but this is the man-made version of the barb when they're gold like this. And when they were doing goldfish, this is known in Italy and Turkey and Eastern Europe in the 1800s. This is known as the red fish out of, or the red cyprinid out of China. They'll call it the Chinese red cyprinid. What they mean there is the rosy barb and gold barb interchangeably. They use those. Wait, hold on. So this is a wild version. And you can see they're still metallic and shiny with the red eye, and that's cool and all. But humans have definitely, here's another little gold barb, but humans have definitely played with these to the extent that it's changed everything. Oh, you guys aren't seeing this. I'm sorry. Hold on. Let me pull this up. Let's see here. I hate it when it does a screen that's teeny and then you guys don't see it anymore. So what I was saying is that these were popular, the gold barbs and things, and that they ended up turning into these in Asia even before the European trade got there. So there was some confusion over if it was a different fish or a variety of fish or a goldfish itself. Your common person would easily think that that's a goldfish, but it's not. It's a Pethia or Galathea, not a carp. But again, here's a picture of right after turn of the century of a pet store. And here is when you start to see them building the kind of more modern framed tanks, when they were able to buy them in mass and get steel that was poured in a mold in this shape, and then they'd fit the glass panes in with that cement. But here, this whole front counter is a fish tank, which is pretty cool. And this guy is trying to capture a picture of it, which is cool. Oh, the other thing that I found interesting about that is that this looks to be possibly an African American, and a woman, and another woman, and a man. And that may not seem like a big deal now, but that's pretty open actually, for the turn of the century to have them all together. Now, there's actually a lot of early literature on goldfish in particular, which is all throughout the, and this is an Italian one, and Cyprini is cyprinid or cyprinidae, but this is what they were calling their red versus gold. So this is the gold cyprini or goldfish, whereas the other one's the gold barb. But again, I wanted to show you a picture. This was that first journal, but I took a picture of it so I could zoom in a little bit and show you guys this. This is 1877, and you can see they've got like some sort of Wells catfish or a channel catfish. They've got an eel in there of some sort. They've got pike. They've also got a bass, it looks like, and a gar. So that's pretty interesting. That they put those together. Eel, poot, car, pike, catfish, and dogfish, freshwater dogfish. But in any case, yeah, so those are just cool images I wanted to share with you guys. And if we go into here, so here is the largest goldfish hatchery in the world at the time. And this is a colorized version of the art, but this is Grassy Fork Fisheries, and it's in Martinsville, Indiana. And this is at the turn of the century, but it actually started in the 1890s that this guy got this land and had a few ponds of his own and became the largest goldfish production farm in the world. We already looked at that. We already looked at the plants. So here's another picture of that farm and how big it was and how he worked that land in Indiana. And then here's another early description here. And this is the variety of goldfish that were available in the 1870s. So you have the boar. They named them after their fin types. And so it's kind of like a razorback wild boar, I guess, is probably where they got the idea. And then you've got the globe, which is like the ranchu or bigger kind of like, I don't know all the names of the ones that are in there, but almost like a pearl scale one. Or a, what do they call them? You guys will know in the chat. I can't remember all the goldfish names. But then they have one called the nymph. And that has larger fin genes and that kind of boar top fin. Then they have your common goldfish, which has short fins, and its body is shaped like this. So the tail is a veil tail slightly in this version here, whereas in here you're seeing a normal tail, a straight tail. So it's kind of a big deal when they came up with the different veil tails that folded out differently. Then you've got the pumpkin seed, which is confusing because there's also the fish known as a pumpkin seed in the U.S. Then you've got the disc, which is where a lot of other varieties came from, and the dolphin. Now, this is the one that was probably being illustrated early on in some of the really terrible illustrations. And it looks really weird with that hump in its head that way. It just doesn't look like any of the ones we keep today. But the Comet is one you guys will recognize. That has the real long fish genes. And this is an all-American goldfish. This was bred in that giveaway program that military officer who was stationed in the Philippines and brought back the goldfish, where you could write the Washington, D.C. and get yourself a free goldfish, and for $2 food in a bowl. That was that guy in the farms that they had in the District of Columbia in Washington, D.C. They were able to find a mutation that had that veil tail, or not the veil tail, but the comet tail and all the long fin genes like that. And they got it from there, and then they gave the babies to several people, including that guy in Indiana, a couple people in Maryland. But they ended up refining that and calling it the Comet as we know it today. Now, again, we've got more of the barbs out of Southeast Asia. They become bigger and bigger. Then you get into Danios. Danios become a thing, and this is what I was asking about in the poll, but this is from 1927, and this is what Lorna sent me. This is the French edition. I'm gonna do a whole episode on that, so I'm gonna save that, but I just wanted to show you. So this, again, though, this was showing a range of some of the fish that were being kept in the hobby in the this is the 1860s. So this is, you've got your two-spine stickleback, you've got also your bullhead, and then you've got your alligator gar. Alligator gars are huge, so must have had a big tank. This is just different text that I took a picture. Oh, so what I wanted to show you here is in that French article, though, look at this. So this is all in one window. And these are like 1 gallon aquariums with kind of Wallstead style tanks. You can see it's stratified dirt and sand or something. They've got something like Aponogetons or Valsinaria, something like that in there, or a water lily. And they've got these longer, slender fish that are either some type of shiner or dace or tench, or it's the start of when you start seeing zebra danios and stuff, which by the mid-20s, the world really changed because you start seeing air flight and stuff like that. But down here, she has, this is like a display of a woman's household showcase of her plants and fish. And they believe that plants and fish went hand in hand, that you really needed the fish with the plants, so the evaporation and all that would actually help kind of take care of the fish. The evaporation would then kind of keep the plants supple, and they thought that the oxygen made by the plants would kind of scrub the air. Just like the plants in the tank. And they also, at that time, believed that essentially that they needed to clean the air, but they didn't really know what of until right around the turn of the century. And then they start to nail down, like, oh, it's the ammonia. Okay, so then we can do this. And with like chemistry, they're able to actually get into, well, how do we solve these problems? And that's when everything changes, and it happens to so be when electricity starts kicking in and all that too. Here's that full image, though, that Lorna sent me. And again, another window, hanging plants, who knows, probably pothos. And no light for their tank. It's all in the window. It looks like goldfish, maybe. And when you go down here, then she's got a bigger tank down on the bottom. And you can see that the plant is growing into the tank. Definitely goldfish of some sort. And then you can see that there are clams, freshwater clams, and big snails in there. And I find that really fascinating. So yeah, there is from that. We already looked at that. Okay, cool. What was this last one? I'm trying to remember. After World War I, German exporters resumed their introduction of new aquarium fish into the hobby. So yeah, that was the first puffers and stuff like that started to enter after World War I, which is interesting. It feels kind of early to me. Also, the first angelfish, Terraphyllum scalara, and then Terraphyllum specii, which that's nothing now. It might be Leopoldi or it could be Altum, but there's only 3 types of angelfish that we know of. So they either changed the name or it could have been discus. Who knows? That's why these things get difficult. And they called puffers ballfish. And then East African, more than 100 varieties of fancy fish and supplies. So things explode after World War I. You know, that that killing people, always good for the hobby, right? When there's a world war. It's sad to say, but it's kind of true. But the paradise fish and all that kind of stuff was what was really big before all of that. Because really, without the temperature, it was hard. You could keep guppies and bettas, things like that started to come in, but you couldn't keep them through a cold winter without some sort of way to heat the whole tank. So yeah, they use natural light, and that's kind of how things things exploded during World War I, too. Yes, figuratively and literally. Yeah, goldfish can live under ice, definitely. So World War III should be great for the hobby. Yeah, exactly. But you know what really happened is that I have a whole talk, actually. I'll let you guys watch that. I gave a talk to the Greater Portland Area Fish Society, GPAS, Guppus, as they say. And I go into 10 moments that shaped the hobby. It's on this channel. So it was recorded for me. And so you can go and see that. And I talk about quite a bit of that history and how war, not war itself, but, you know, the invention of the intercontinental airliner, how plastics and bags and cellophane, all these things, how they all had so much to do with pushing the hobby forward. And after World War I, what it really was you see things like bicycle tires and pumps, like the hand pumps with the little gauges, being mass produced finally. And you see the Henry Ford Model T production line kind of thing spreading all over. Now, he didn't invent that. The Romans literally had production lines, but it's the first real industrial stuff. I mean, the Industrial Revolution kicks off in the 1700s, but it's really the first, how do I say this? Consumer grade, and you're able to get it. The average person in America or Europe would be able to get it. Yeah. So, hey, what's up, Dragon Lair? What's up, Richard Blunt? Velcro was an invention. Yes, it was. I think, wasn't it like a Swiss or something sheep herder who saw that like burrs and thistles were getting stuck on lambs and goats and sheep, and looked at them closely and saw that it was the hair curling over like this, and then the other one doing the same, and they lock. Yeah, interchangeable parts, standardization. I mean, having the same gauge of railroad. There's a funny story of Russia building a railroad and not building the same gauges when they built from using supplies out of China and Mongolia, and then they tried to head towards each other, and they meet in the middle, and the gauges are different. Whoops. Meaning the size of the railroad. So I am going to wrap up this stream. I am going to probably come out with an episode going into more depth about the first cichlids in the hobby. Also about, you know, the zebra danios and some of these other fish that are in the early hobby, and there are illustrations of them long before there's any information of species names and things like that. So it's just like today, where we have a lot of things in the hobby that science hasn't caught up with. And back then, and before telephones, and when telegraph was expensive or not in every town and stuff, it got even harder. It was even harder to spread that information accurately. So Oink Master Supreme Forever says, hope you're feeling well. I have a question. What is your favorite reasonably priced plant growing aquarium light? I've not yet. Well, I'd say I like the Fluval 3.0. it's probably expensive to most people. I mean, it is expensive to me too, but just in the scheme of lights, some can cost $2,000. So $150 to $200 light to me is not an expensive light, even if that's a lot of money to me. But a Haiger you can get for 50 to 70 to cover like a 40-gallon breeder, and it puts out a decent amount. Nycrew or Beams Work also have some okay ones now. But Haiger's 957 is pretty decent. I like that one. You can also use LED lights that are floodlights from Home Depot, honestly. And you just get anything that says Cree LED, CREE LED, because Cree is a giant manufacturer of LEDs. In fact, it's the world's largest. And it's also who reportedly or purportedly creates the LED diodes for Fluval even. So they make diodes in everything from like Mercedes cars to dollar store junk. They've got a wide array of quality and price and types, but the Cree LEDs you find in floodlights are almost always pretty good. Just make sure that it's in the 6,000 to 7,000 Kelvin range, with 6,500 being ideal. And you can use those spotlights. They can sometimes cause algae, and they don't have timers and all that. But yeah. Ticket to Space, $5 super chat. Thanks for another one, bro. Bro, you are so welcome. Really, though, I appreciate it greatly. I don't know what's going on, but I think YouTube is taking a bigger cut of super chats, or there's a new policy. They sent us some email that had like an 80-page document attached if you did actually read it. They send you these updates a lot, but they said the new terms and conditions of service and way that they're going to pay things out has changed, but basically don't worry about it, it's all good kind of email. And yeah, it's kind of interesting because you guys, I want to thank you so much. You guys have watched, subscribers of this channel and viewers of this channel have been watching 2 million minutes the last few months, which is up for this channel. And yet the money went down from, I'll be transparent with you guys. So from all the ads, memberships, super chats, my income, the most I've ever made is $1,800 from that stuff. And that is with 3 million views in this last December. That was my best month I've ever had. And it was like $1,860, $1,860 some dollars. Thank you so much, Killer Kitty. Oh, you know, I've looked at that name a couple times in the past and like assumed it said Kirk or Curler or something. But now that I see that it says Killer Kitty 08, I love it. Thank you. Thank you very much for the super chat. But in any case, I was just saying that they've made it kind of they must have changed something, because you guys are watching, and I thank you so much for that. Members didn't go down, they went up. And yet I'm making less in 2021 than I was in those months in 2000 or 2022 than I was in 2021. And so I'm trying to figure out what the source of it is. If anybody has a channel and knows, I'd love to know that. Yeah, YouTube takes 40%. Oh, and then on top of that, 1876 that I made. So, and when I say that like the amount of money they sent me went down, last month I got $1,200 instead of $1,870. Then I have to pay 30% taxes on that. So and YouTube actually does track it, so you really have to pay taxes. It's not just like I gotta pay taxes on that. Wink, wink. I looked like I was having a stroke there, probably. But I'd switch Patreon to support if you made more. Yeah, you know, I have a Patreon, and really the options on there aren't that great for supporting. You know, all the extra content is really here for members for $1.99, and I like to keep it that way. PayPal, I do in the description. You can go to Alexander J. Williamson at gmail.com, and you can just PayPal me. I mean, that does work instead of super chats. They don't get their 40%, and in theory, they don't directly report me to the government for taxes. But I do pay taxes on that just because I don't want to get in trouble later on. But yeah, it's kind of crazy that they take that cut. Euro Gupper says, Alex, it might be that your account is on the rise, but advertising might be down. That's true. They could be getting lower prices for advertising. It's just weird because I've been on for 5 years, and that's like a 30% reduction in revenue with the stats going up. So it just feels odd. If YouTube had less advertisers, they would probably pay YouTubers less. Yeah, probably. They probably would. But it's just interesting. Let's see here. Mick, our cichlid, our dwarf cichlid expert says, go watch Cold Water Aquatics video on Australo Heroes Species Local. Oh, whoops, here it goes. Wigglers. It's from the 29th of April, 2021. You might have a Facetum Cyclosomas. Oh, right on. I'll check that out. Yeah, I'd love to see that. I just want to see one swimming around. Apparently, it was like one of the most common fish in our hobby, and now it's just gone. It's amazing how many fish are like that. It's insane. Let's see here. Tickets to Space says, bet, bro, we'll just do it through PayPal from now on. That sucks that you're literally doing 100% of the work and they're digging in your pockets that much. Yeah, you know, I mean, I wouldn't have a platform without it. So it's kind of a weird situation, but yeah. Aquaball says, Alex, I put Maha Chai, is it not Mahaensis, right? Betta back to breeding, this time bigger clutch. Right on. Congrats, man. Alex, did you see my comment about the history of fish keeping? Would be nice if you could get Rosario Lacorte on to talk about his early. Yeah. No, I agree. I didn't see that comment, but now I do. I mean, now I see that you mentioned something about it. I can pull it up on my phone here where I get all the comments. All of the comments. Yes, let's see here. Yes, I can see it. Also, maybe your account. Oh, yeah. Okay, we got all that. All right, guys. Well, if anybody has any last-minute questions, let me know. And I know Bentley's on right now, and I don't want to stomp on another local YouTuber of my similar size or anything. So I'm going to sign off. But I really want to thank you all so very much for coming, for watching, for contributing, asking questions, for the super chats, for the lurkers, for the memberships, for those of you who don't have the cash on hand, that's all good, but you just watch, like, and share these videos. It means a ton to me, and I'm extremely grateful. So thank you so much for that. Alex, maybe you need to do more of those new product reviews, which probably will also engage with more aquarium type advertising. Yeah, I know. You're actually Euro Gupper, you're totally right. If I make certain content like that, and like beginner content as they call it, I get more money. If I do videos that are 6 to 10 minutes, I get more money. Actually, really, like 10 minutes is a sweet spot, but really like 12 minutes or like whatever it ends up being, 11 minutes, 30 seconds is kind of the sweet spot. And in on YouTube, it does not pay to make a long video. It's diminishing returns exponentially the longer it gets. So, but I think that's the best way to present this information personally. And I like that I can chat with you guys on these live streams. So I'm going to keep doing it the way that feels truest to how we communicate or to what I like. And the money will come eventually, or the platform will crash and go down in flames or something, you know, one or the other. So it'll all be good. All right, guys, I'm going to get out of here, though, like I said I was going to. But thank you very much for tuning in and all that. I need to go take a little nappy nap now. Said and probably way too much this episode. All right, guys, I'll talk to you later. I've got a lot of ideas for episodes touching back on the history kind of theme. So we'll see, but we'll see how much they get watched. People tend to like episodes that are like, watch my fish eat a pound of bloodworms or whatever. So we'll see. Maybe I'll have to make one of those videos just to kind of what do they say? Keep the lights on, so to speak. They're not the worst thing. Or like 10 fish that are blue, 10 fish that look like the Ukrainian flag. Maybe I'll do that. You know, relevant topics. They'll give you a lot more ad revenue for that kind of stuff generally. But it can't be controversial. So it's kind of like a catch-22 with some of that stuff. All right, guys. Mark Sterlison, thank you. Also, I see you, buddy. And thank you for all the great, intelligent, awesome people in here. Have a wonderful night. This time I'm really signing off. Goodbye, goodbye, goodbye. Talk to you guys later. Thanks. Bye.